Hello everyone, I am Dinesh Kumar Yadav, Assistant Professor in IIMT College of Engineering, Greater Noida. My today's lecture is on role of revised Bloom's taxonomy in course outcomes. So we have to first understand what a student wants when he is given a subject to learn. Well, a student learns well when he is clear about what he is expected to do or what he is expected to perform at the end of a course. And he is also able to learn well once he is sure that whatever has been taught to him or whatever has been he is evaluated upon is in alignment with what he is expected to do. So if he is clear about both these things, then the process of learning becomes easy for a student. At least he gets an objective. So what are course outcomes? So course outcomes are what the students should be able to understand at the end of a course. So these are the statements that help the learner to understand the reason for pursuing the course. Also, it helps the student to identify what he will be able to understand at the end of a particular course. So for these two reasons, it is very important for course outcomes to be demarked. And a very important aspect of a course outcome is that it should be specific, it should be measurable, it should not be vague. So we will start by first understanding what is the structure of a particular course outcome statement. So a course outcome statement has four parts. First one is action part, then knowledge part, then condition part, and criteria part. So the action verb indicates the cognitive process that is involved in that particular statement which we are going to create. So what is the meaning of the cognitive process? It is the process of acquiring and understanding the knowledge through your thoughts, through your experiences, and through your senses. So whatever the user has acquired, whatever knowledge the user has acquired by means of his personal experiences, by means of the senses, by means of other methods, that is dealt with the cognition process. So cognition process has various levels. Next is knowledge part. The knowledge part represents the specific knowledge from any one of the 8 knowledge categories. We have different knowledge categories like factual knowledge, conceptual knowledge, procedural knowledge, metacognitive knowledge, and likewise. So your course outcome statement must specify which of the knowledge category it is catering to. The third part in a CO statement is the condition part, which represents the process the learner is expected to follow or the condition under which he has to perform that particular action. But this conditional part is optional for any CO statement. Likewise, the last part we have is criteria part in a CO statement, which represents the parameters that characterize the acceptability level of performing the action. And like condition part, the criteria part is also optional in a particular CO statement, but the action part and the knowledge part are compulsory. So we will see an example of CO statements. Like you see in this first example, sample one CO statement is written. It reads like, calculate major and minor losses associated with fluid flow in piping networks. So in this particular CO statement, you can see that there is an action part and there is a knowledge part. The action part says that the action verb is calculate, and it caters to the level of apply. It caters to apply level. So the cognitive level here is the apply level, which we will learn later on. And the knowledge part here refers to the conceptual and procedural knowledge. So the knowledge part here is major and minor losses associated with fluid flow in piping networks. So this particular CO statement in sample number 1 has a action part and knowledge part. There are no conditions involved here. There is no criteria involved here. In sample 2, determine the dynamic unbalanced conditions of a given mechanical system of rigid bodies subjected to force and acceleration. In this particular CO statement, apart from the action statement and the knowledge part, we also have a condition part. The action part says that the cognitive level here is apply, and the knowledge part says that the dynamic unbalanced conditions which he has to calculate refers to the conceptual and procedural knowledge category. It also has a condition here. The condition is that the given mechanical system of rigid bodies is subjected to force and acceleration. So with this condition in mind, the learner has to determine the dynamic unbalanced conditions. There are no criteria involved here. In sample number 4, determine the root of a given equation accurate to second decimal place using Newton-Raphson method. So the action part here is determine. Determine is the action verb associated with the apply level, the apply cognitive level. The knowledge part here refers to root of the given equation. The condition which is mentioned here is that whatever he has to find the root of the given equation, that he has to find with the help of Newton-Raphson method. So a condition has been given here. Also, one criteria is involved here. Criteria is that whatever he will calculate with the help of Newton-Raphson method, he has to calculate up to second decimal place. So this is the criteria. So in this particular sample, you can see that all the 4 parts are there. But let me remind you again that the action part and knowledge part are compulsory for any CO statement, but the condition part and criteria part are optional. So what are the things we have to keep in mind while writing the CO statements of any particular course? The first thing is that your CO statement must be very specific. It should not be vague. So in order to create a specific course outcome statement, you have to avoid the words like such as, different, various, etc. So whatever you write in the CO statement must be written in such a way that it refers to something which can be measured. It refers to something which can be specific, which is specific. It should not be vague. Then you also have to avoid combining 2 different cognitive levels into one CO statement. So you have to avoid including 2 action verbs in one CO statement. But in any rare case where this becomes a necessity, you have to keep in mind that those 2 action verbs which you want to include in a single CO statement must be from the same cognitive level. It should not happen that one action verb is from cognitive level remember and the other action verb is say from the cognitive level apply. It should not happen. Both the action verbs must be from the same cognitive level, but this thing must only be used if there is genuinely an urgency, genuinely a requirement to do so. Otherwise, in normal circumstances, one CO statement must have only one action verb from any one of the 6 cognitive levels. So, and how many CO statements must be there for one particular course? So it can be anything from 4 to 6. For a particular course or for a particular subject, as we call in normal language, there must be only 4 to a maximum of 6 course outcome statements. So it is not that we can write course outcome statements without any taxonomy. Taxonomy is very important while framing the course outcome statements, because a taxonomy provides a well-defined structure to a course outcome statement. So a taxonomy is a common platform for teachers where they can discuss and exchange learning and assessment methods in increasing cognitive complexities from remember to create. So there are various taxonomies available like Kendall, Marazona, Gagne, Fink, Solo. But here in this particular lecture, we will focus on the Bloom's taxonomy. So the Bloom's taxonomy was first created in 1956, and in 2001 it was updated by Anderson, and since then it is known as Revised Bloom's taxonomy. So this Revised Bloom's taxonomy was created, or it includes measurable verbs which help us describe and classify the observable knowledge, the skills, the attitudes, the behaviors, and abilities. So we have 6 cognitive levels in Revised Bloom's taxonomy, starting from remember, then next is understand, then next is apply, then analyze, evaluate, and the highest cognitive level refers to create. So we have 6 levels in Revised Bloom's taxonomy. These are the 6 cognitive levels or 6 cognitive processes. So we will see them one by one, but let's have a brief idea about them. What is remember level, what is understand level, and so on. So it is a very common thing to say that someone had to first remember something before we can say that he has understood that thing. It means whatever has been written in the textbooks, I have to first remember them. I have to first learn them. Then only I can claim that I have completely understand that fact, that knowledge. So the very first cognitive level here is the remember level, that the learner has to remember the previously available information in textbooks or anywhere. Once he is able to remember that information, then only we can claim that he is able to understand that particular information. So once the remember level is achieved, then only we can say that we can go to the understand level. So in understand level, the learner or the user has to demonstrate the understanding of whatever he has remembered, whatever he has learned in the remember level. So if I give an example of these 2 levels, let's say a learner was given a task to remember the definition of K-map, the definition of truth table, the definition of Boolean expressions. So he has learned whatever he find in the textbook. So now he remembered the definition of these 3 things, the Boolean expression, the truth table, and the K-map. He remember these things. But if we want him to go up to the understand level, understand cognitive process, then it is a must for him to understand how to convert a Boolean expression into K-map, how to write a Boolean expression into K-map or into truth table, or how to transform the information available in a truth table onto a K-map or vice versa. If the learner is able to do all these things, then it is a clear indication that he has understood the concepts of K-map, the concepts of Boolean expression, the concepts of truth table or the function table. So whatever he learned from the remember level, he is now able to implement that in the understand level. he has clearly understood the concept behind these things. Okay. Now, once the learner has understood properly whatever he has learned, then only he will be able to apply that knowledge to the actual situations. So, after the understand level, we have apply level. So, once the learner is able to understand how to use whatever he has learned in the remember level, then only he will be able to apply that information in the actual situations. After the apply level, we have analyze level, where it is required to break down the object or the ideas or the information into simpler parts and find the evidence to support those generalizations. So application was necessary for analyze part. Once he is able to apply, once he is able to do the application part, then only we can say that the learner is able to analyze the object or the ideas into smaller parts. Likewise, analyze is necessary in order to make and defend the judgments, which is a part of the evaluate. So once the learner is able to break down the piece of information or ideas into smaller parts, then only we can say that he has got so much of information, so much of knowledge about that part, that he can create his own judgments from that information. So this is evaluate level. And lastly, once the learner has reached up to the evaluate level, then only we can expect him to compile component ideas or new processes, or to propose alternative solutions. So evaluate is necessary in order to create new solutions. Now we will see all these cognitive levels one by one, starting from remember level. So as I said earlier, remembering is just retrieving the relevant information, knowledge from your long-term memory, whatever has you learned from the textbooks and other sources. So you just have to reproduce that information, that knowledge, based on your long-term memory. So the action verbs that will be utilized in creating the course outcome statements are written at the bottom of this page. So as you can see, they are recognize, name, recall, list, tell, locate, write, find, mention, and so on. So all these verbs clearly indicate that the user is just supposed to recall or reproduce the previously learned information. These are some of the sample questions, sample activities, which are from remember cognitive level. Like you can ask the learner to state the condition for maximum efficiency of a transformer. Now the maximum efficiency of a transformer has already been calculated. It is already been mentioned in the textbooks, and the user just has to uh, reproduce that information. Nothing new he has to do. He just has to reproduce that information, whatever he has learned. Then another example is draw the stress strain curve. So the stress strain curve is already defined. It is already drawn. It is already available in the textbooks. Yet the user has to just reproduce that curve. So these are the sample activities of the remember level. Next, we have understand level. Understanding is constructing the meaning from instructional messages, or to demonstrate an understanding of the facts, whatever he has learned in the remember level. And these instructional messages can be verbal, these can be pictorial or graphic or symbolic. These are some of the action verbs that will be utilized in understand level: translate, paraphrase, illustrate, instantiate, categorize, generalize, abstract. So what a student is required here a student is required to be able to construct or implement or differentiate the various knowledge parts in his own language. He must be able to understand what is the relationship between these two different pieces of informations. Are they correlated or not? Are there any common features between them, or how they can be differentiated? He just has to perform these tasks. These are some of the questions, the sample questions. Explain why in a DC machine flux per pole decrease with increase in load. Write a brief outline of anything distinguish between. So these are some of the sample activities. Next we have apply. So whatever the learner has acquired, the piece of knowledge from the textbooks or from other sources, whatever he has acquired, if he is able to understand that, and one step beyond that, he is able to apply that knowledge in the practical situations, in the actual situations, then we say that the user has reached up to the apply cognitive process. So here he is supposed to execute something, he is supposed to implement something. Like you can see in the action verbs also, the action verbs used in the apply cognitive level are determine, calculate, compute, estimate, solve, draw, modify, etc. This is one such sample activity mentioned here. A numerical is being given in which the student is required to calculate the time taken by a 200-ton motor coach to attain speed of 50 km per hour when it starts on an upgradient of 30 in 1000. So various parameters are given here, various numerical values are given here, and the student has to calculate the time taken to attain a particular specific speed. So obviously the formulas are pre-calculated, the relationships are pre-known to him. He just has to apply those formulas, he just has to apply his knowledge in solving this particular problem. In the second question also, the question reads like the primary and secondary windings of a 400 kVA 600 volt 250 volt single phase transformer has resistance 10 watt and 0.2 watt respectively. So he has to find the full load voltage regulation. So again, the full load voltage regulation is to be calculated by means of some formula which is pre-defined. So by keeping in mind these numeric values, the user has to calculate, he has to find out this particular information. So if a student is able to solve these kind of activities, if he is able to provide the solutions to the real life problems, then we say that he has reached up to the apply cognitive level. Next is analyze. So analyze process involves the breaking up of given material into its constituent parts and determining how those individual parts are related to one and another, and also to that overall structure. For example, if we take an example of Yadav antenna, it consists of various individual components, parts, like it has a boom, it has a director, it has a dipole, it has reflectors also. So together, all these pieces constitute the Yadav antenna, and all these individual parts have their own parameters which have to be keep in mind. They have their own properties. So if a student is able to understand how much is the distance between a director and the dipole, how much must be the distance between the reflector and the dipole. So if he is able to calculate all these things, if he clearly understands what are the different properties of director, reflector, boom, or the dipole, if he understands well how these individual components work to create an overall antenna, Yagiyoda antenna, then we say that the knowledge being transferred here is up to the cognitive level, the analyze cognitive level. So the action verbs used in analyze cognitive process are discriminate, select, focus, distinguish, structure, integrate, etc. These are some of the sample activities and questions. So these are the examples. Next we have evaluate. So in cognitive process of evaluate, we have to be able to make judgments based on certain criteria and standards. And those criteria can be related to quality, those can be related to effectiveness or the efficiency or consistency. These standards may be qualitative also, they can be quantitative also. So if we are able to create our own opinions, we are able to give the judgments based on certain standards, based on certain criteria, then we say that we have reached up to the evaluate cognitive process. And some of the action verbs are mentioned below: test, detect, monitor, judge the accuracy, judge the adequacy or the appropriateness or the clarity, cohesiveness, etc. If we are able to do all these things or one of these things, then we say that we have reached up to the cognitive process of evaluate. Last cognitive process, which is highest in the order, is create. In order to be able to reach up to the create cognitive process, we must be able to develop or create a whole new process, a whole new idea, a whole new alternative solution. If we are able to do that, if we are able to perform that, we say that we have reached up to the cognitive process of create. So we have to develop some alternative hypothesis or some theory or some idea which was unknown previously, which was not known to anybody till date. If we are able to do that thing, then we are at the create cognitive process. So one thing to be taken care of here is that the cognitive process of create or the cognitive process of evaluate or the cognitive process of analyze, these are time taken processes. So we must keep in mind that the questions related to these three cognitive levels must be given to those type of activities which are not dependent on time, like assignments, like field jobs, like projects. Because in all these activities, the time available for the learner is not a limitation. But on the other hand, if we give these type of questions to a student in a limited 3-hour duration written examination, then he won't be able to go all the way up to the create level or all the way up to the analyze level, because he is bounded by the time. There is very limited time available at his disposal in which he has to attempt many other questions also. So care must be taken to assign any question of analyze level or create level only in projects, only in field studies, only in assignment problems, so that time is not a foundation for him. So we were discussing the create process. These are some of the action verbs for the create level, like develop alternative hypotheses or theories or explanations, or plan something, design something, or construct something. So these verbs already, as I said, indicate that the learner is supposed to give some new idea, give some alternative solution, give some alternative idea of something which was unknown till now. So these are the cognitive levels which we have to taken care of while constituting the course outcome statements. If we take care of the course outcome statements based upon the syllabus we have and depending upon the suitable action verbs, then it will be very easy for the student to understand why this particular subject or this particular course is being taught to him. If he understands the requirement of that particular course, why he is being asked to study that course, then it will be easy for him to understand the requirement of any topic in that particular course. That's all for today. Thank you very much.